All right, let's get started. All right, so welcome back to Genomics and Personalized Medicine, hopefully the improved version. All right, so we're going to go over a few things. We're going to go over the definitions, what's going on, what's new, who will benefit, and what are essentially the major obstacles to personalized medicine. So first, genomic medicine itself, what is that? What's the difference between genetics and genomics? Genomic medicine is the use of genetic information to be able to customize a health maintenance and treatment plan. So basically, taking those genes and reading them and knowing how to turn them on or off as appropriate for the situation. Now, personalized medicine is using those genomics along with knowledge of the patient's medical and environmental history to customize those treatment plans. The ultimate goal is to maintain health, diagnose disease earlier, and treat them better in order to enhance longevity. So how do genes work, right? You have 23 pairs of chromosomes. You inherited one complete set from your mother and one complete set from your father, assuming nothing went wrong in that process. Each chromosome has millions of base pairs. You can see chromosome 1 has 246 million base pairs. So there is a range, and the chromosomes differ in sizes. Chromosome 20 there has 63 million base pairs. And each one of these, several can encode for diseases, where only one letter is changed in your DNA code and you end up with any one of these diseases that are listed here. So, oh, sorry, that protein's not supposed to be there yet, but so these base pairs are responsible for assembling amino acids into proteins. And so you can see here this, this gene, it is separated into RNA, and then these amino acids are attracted to it. They each match with a certain one, and 3 of them put together start to make a protein. Okay, and so various proteins can be made depending on what that gene codes for. Now, changes in those base pairs are called polymorphisms, and they give instructions for different proteins. So changing a single base pair leading to a change in the end result is called a single nucleotide polymorphism, or a SNP. Okay, that's the last time I will say that whole thing. So different proteins produced lead to different results or different phenotypes. So for example, you have the blue-eyed phenotype and the brown-eyed phenotype. So you have this gene code for the mother, and you have this gene code from the father, and this here is the SNP, okay? This is the one that can change from person to person. Everything else is the same. So the possible variations there are an AA, which is going to give you blue eyes, an AT, which is going to give you green eyes, and a TT, which is going to give you brown eyes. Now, this is obviously an oversimplification of eyes. But as you can see, just changing one letter has a fairly large impact on what happens, what things look like, or the phenotype. So how much a gene produces, or even if it produces at all, is referred to as gene expression. And if we can upregulate or downregulate that gene expression, we would have a target for therapy. Okay, and so if we had a way to perhaps turn it off, or maybe even just turn it down or turn it up, depends what the gene is, of course, that might help us either control inflammation, control disease, prevent disease. Obviously, it's the whole genome and encodes for the whole body, so depending what specific scenario we are talking about, this will change, but this is the basic template. Now, as I mentioned, changing just one letter in a base pair can have a major impact on gene function and expression. And you might ask, how when you're giving instructions, how much difference could one letter make? Well, boil or broil, a teaspoon or a tablespoon, dump or pump, right? It matters. A letter matters, okay? And so in your billions of genes, less than 1% is different from a monkey. Little changes must matter a lot. So what's new in genomic and personalized medicine? Technological advances are occurring at unprecedented speeds with stunning success. So we have genomics, which includes, improvements. We have gene editing now. We have advances in the understanding of disease, stem cell technology. We now have the ability to read DNA as if it were a map, which 20 years ago, that concept was laughable. We have big data. We have machine learning. We have the ability to process unbelievable amounts of information at unbelievable speeds. And then we have epigenome mapping. And so what's an epigenome? That is a new word in this presentation. And so those are chemical changes that can occur to the DNA after we are born, and it can be passed down to our offspring. So what's causing those changes? Environmental toxins, chronic inflammation, smoking, obesity, diet, alcohol, poor sleep habits, especially night shifts, chronic stress or severe stress. They've actually found that in the offspring of Holocaust survivors, up to 2 generations later, they have been genetic changes from that. So who's going to benefit from personalized medicine? Well, everyone, if we could afford to do it from everyone. Healthy people would certainly benefit, people that are worried about diseases that just run in the family, elite athletes that want to predict athletic performance or injury recovery with particular treatments or regimens, those who want prenatal testing, anyone who prefers a proactive approach to healthcare and longevity, concerns for environmental exposures, custom diet and exercise, and optimizing cognitive function or preventing neurodegenerative diseases. And of course, sick people would most certainly benefit, right? Cancer patients, they can benefit both by sequencing tumor genome to guide precise treatment. So this is when they take a biopsy and send it for genetics, and then they pick which chemotherapy or which treatment based on the tumor markers or the tumor genes that are present. But then you can also test the patient and increase or decrease the activity of genes that are known to help or hurt that cancer. So, for example, there are cancer regulator genes, or rather cell regulator genes. They regulate cell reproduction, and when they are out of control, people tend to get cancers. And if there was a way to help regulate that, it would be very beneficial to that person. And then people with simple genetic defects, as I mentioned, those single cell or single nucleotide diseases, including sickle cell, cystic fibrosis, the things that we've always known were genetic diseases. Those that would like precise information to guide medication dosing, including prediction of efficacy and side effects. Those that would like to solve mystery illnesses. There are many people that are going to the doctor and being told nothing is wrong when they know something is. When the doctor says nothing's wrong, it doesn't mean that everything's right. It means you can't find the answer, okay? Sometimes it means I have figured out that it's not anything that's going to kill you anytime soon. But that doesn't make your stomach stop hurting or your headaches go away or whatever the issue is, right? It will help to define derangements that lead to complex chronic diseases on a molecular and cellular level. That one's kind of a mouthful, but things like heart disease, for example, have very many processes that add up in the long term to heart disease. Inflammation is certainly a huge factor. And if you could limit long-term inflammation over a course of years, it would be very good for a person's heart. And so if a person had very, very strong genetic factors for heart disease, you would really want to focus on lifestyle and diet. And you would really want to make sure you pick the right statin, the right blood pressure medication. You don't want to find out after the heart attack that it was not the right one for them. And things like this is all in the pharmacogenomics, but let's say after that person had a heart attack because they didn't know in advance that diet and exercise wasn't enough for them, and because their genes were just too strong. Let's say afterwards they were put on a blood thinner, which is mandatory after a heart attack. But the wrong one was picked because they don't metabolize it the same as your average patient, which is how we pick medication, right? What worked for the general population best, not what worked for you. And so now that person's had 2 heart attacks at 50, and then they get on the right medication. Now, if that person had their genetic testing to begin with, they may never have had that heart attack. Or if they had it after the heart attack, they may have picked the right blood thinner to begin with. All right, so let's look at a patient. This is obviously not a real patient picture. So we have a 27-year-old female with no diagnosed medical history. She's a flight attendant and she travels frequently. She intermittently has cramping, abdominal pain, bloating, and diarrhea. She's made significant efforts to find the cause on her own, but without success. She's done the usual elimination diet. She's done gluten-free. She's done dairy-free. She's done a bunch of different things that she read about, FODMAPs and all those trendy diets, and nothing has really helped. She tried a full meditation regimen, including a full mindfulness retreat, because she was told it was stress related. She was told it was irritable bowel, and that if she just relaxed better, it would be taken care of. It did not help. She had a complete medical workup. She had a CAT scan. She had endoscopies, upper, that's in the stomach, and lower, that's, well, you know where lower is. Those also did not help. She pooped in a cup when the doctor asked. There were no answers there. She kept a very thorough symptom journal, and it really did not appear to correlate to her sleep, stress, or diet. In fact, she would notably eat the same thing repeatedly and have variable symptoms. For example, whenever she flew out of DFW, she would get chicken fried rice. It was her favorite at P.F. Chang's. It's very unhealthy, but she only got sick about 70% of the time. So we did genetic testing. See, she's happy now. And it was a strong risk for something called, excuse me, histamine sensitivity. Okay, so histamine sensitivity, which you may have heard of in the context of allergies, is a little different when it's ingested. It comes from food, and you can just have an inflammatory reaction. You don't really have an allergy to it. But certain foods have increasing levels of histamine as they age. And the East Asian tradition of hanging poultry in room temperature environments accelerates that process. So the symptom level depends on how long the bird was hanging before it was cooked. Not something that she would actually know about this food when she's journaling. So she's now generally able to avoid higher histamine foods. She still cannot resist P.F. Chang's. So she takes quercetin before she eats it. She takes 4 tabs, and she does pretty well with it and has minimal symptoms. So what are the obstacles to personalized medicine? Well, most notably the cost. It's not covered by insurance. They're not going to help. It's cutting edge technology, and quite frankly, if they don't have to, they're not going to. And then the other problem is genetic discrimination. So you are protected. You might have heard of this, but there's something called GINA, the Genetic Information Non-Discrimination Act, and they cannot discriminate against you for health insurance or employment. It's seen as, I guess, stacking the deck, and you are protected. But it does not protect you against discrimination for life insurance or long-term disability insurance, which most certainly could be a problem. I mean, if you're 25 years old and it says that, you know, you're high risk for, let's say, Parkinson's disease, and then they deny you disability insurance and then you get Parkinson's disease, that's a problem, right? So many clinicians, myself included, will not submit it to insurance due to these concerns, and we go to fairly extreme circumstances to protect your HIPAA. Those files are your right, and nobody needs to know but you and myself. So as far as the cost goes, what's the ROI of personalized medicine? I mean, again, it's an expensive test. We're talking about genetics. So the comprehensive genetic test, that's the most expensive one, the map of your whole body. And that starts at $1,500. The additional cost, and the reason I say starts at, is because if you would like more than an hour of genetic counseling, there are over 900 genes on there. So depending what you're interested in, you may want to spend hours with me, and that's fine. But there's no surprise cost. I don't want you to think that when it said starts up. This test actually, as they find new genes, I do believe they add them on. And so you do get additional information even after that test is done. And for my clinic patients, that actually has an endocannabinoid pathway. And so things like CBD to THC ratio and ideal use for you would actually be included in those genetic studies. So you do end up saving money. Now, I do want to emphasize that the money is not really the issue. It's really the lifestyle and the longevity and really the improvement in overall quality. But you can save money after you spend all that, okay? So you have a lifetime of savings on repeat testing, right? Things like warfarin for a blood thinner requires labs up to 3 times a week. High cholesterol, thyroid abnormalities, and diabetes all require testing every 3 to 6 months. Even if you're only paying like a $20 copay, that adds up over a lifetime. You have failed medication trials. You have side effects. Okay? Some of those require an ER visit or a hospitalization. There's a few $100s just in copay if you're well covered. You got to limit the meds by choosing the most effective therapy first, okay? Instead of switching to 3 different medications, you get it right the first time. And you limit the medications that you need at all by choosing the most effective diet. Maybe you wouldn't need 3 blood pressure medications if you just weren't eating. I don't know, I'd have to read your genes. Okay, so that is kind of the essential. Over time, as I get more patients, I'll be adding more case studies for you guys, and I hope to get those up online soon. But that is kind of the general with genomics. The tests that we run are all actionable genes, so we're only looking at things you can turn on and off. There are times when we know a gene might be involved, but we don't really know what to do with it. We wouldn't necessarily be running that gene in that PCR, which would up the cost for no reason. And the test was created by a naturopath. So actually a naturopath MD, family physician. She's, one of those annoyingly smart people with far too many credentials. it's actionable with all natural things like pomegranate and ashwagandha root and quercetin and other really natural remedies to change your genes, because really we co-evolved with these remedies. These plants grew alongside of our ancestors. That's what they used, and that is what has the greatest impact. Does anyone have any questions?
I have several.
Go for it.
Okay, this is a really new testing. Would that be correct?
Yeah, it's relatively new, and it's certainly new that we know what to do with it. But the Human Genome Project was completed in the 90s. So yeah,
Wow.
to be able to use this clinically is really in the last decade or so.
So once you get the testing, where do you go with that information? What do you do with it?
So then we sit down and we review it, and I look to see what puts you at higher risk and what puts you at lower risk, what protects you. And what we do is optimize either your lifestyle, your medications. I mean, we would have established goals in advance. And then depending, if you're looking for a total lifestyle modification, then we're going to meet several times over several months. If you're looking to fix one problem specifically, then you might only need one appointment, and I would totally leave that up to you. It's all optional, because you're the one that has to pay for it. And we would use it, for example, we might say intermittent fasting is great for you. It's right here in your genes. Or intermittent fasting is actually going to make you gain a ton of weight. And we sit there, we optimize, you have a problem. Actually, you have increased utilization in your zinc pathway. And so while we've been taking that like crazy to prevent COVID, you actually only need half as much. So, you can optimize a lot of things.
So can this testing of me help me to help my daughter and say, I've got this issue, so you might have that issue too?
To some degree, but it becomes a might. When we talk about genes and we do all those calculations and what's the risk and stuff, that only counts for prediction and how common things are and how easily they're passed along, but it doesn't have to follow that. So for example, I think most of you have met my office manager / mom, Tammy.
Yes.
Was shocked to find, sorry Tammy, but she's not my patient, so I don't have to protect her HIPAA. I would never talk.
What? Seriously?
So Tammy was shocked to find out that she is 23% Italian.
It was shocking, guys. It was shocking.
Okay. She is still trying to figure out who her mother slept with. Okay.
Love it.
So
all right, but as far as this, when I look out
hold on. So by math, you would expect that I should be about 12% Italian, right? Sure. I'm not. I'm about 3%, 2.8% or something like that. So,
which is the same as my sister, by the way, my full-blooded sister.
How does that happen?
Right. So Tammy got like all the Italian, and even though I am her clear and direct descendant by matching faces and all, I don't have her Italian. So, your daughter could be the one who got all of your genes. It has the 23%, or she could be the one who has 100%. So you don't know. So it depends kind of how important is this thing? How hard is it to get your daughter to do her own testing? Is it kind of general health? I mean, it might help. It's better than nothing.
Right. What I found reading out on the internet, at one point I just decided I don't want to know. I look at Angelina Jolie, who cut off her breast and took her uterus out because of this type of testing. And if it's giving you alternatives, that's a wonderful thing. But part of me just says, do I really want to know what my predisposition is.
Well,
It's kind of scary.
years ago, when we knew it was, when we thought it was a predisposition, no, we knew it. We knew it was a predisposition. It was set in stone. What's the point of knowing? But this is not a destiny. This is a suggestion. This is a gate that can be opened or closed. So, for example, let's say lung cancer. Okay, there are genes that make you more or less likely to get lung cancer. Now, some people have these genes very, very strongly. They're going to get lung cancer no matter what. Hell, maybe they don't even need to smoke to get lung cancer. Okay?
Which I never understood.
Yeah, they have a real bad gene. And then maybe there's a couple that are so strongly, like if they're near a cigarette, they're going to get lung cancer. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, you're going to have people who can smoke 2 packs a day along with their pint of whiskey and be just fine and live to 105. Okay, those people, testing their genes is not going to help anything. But the majority of people are somewhere in the middle where their genes can be actually affected, where like maybe they wouldn't have got lung cancer if they didn't smoke. And
right.
If knew that, right? Now, everyone who had started smoking, knowing that it could cause lung cancer, felt it would never happen to them.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, we're all invincible, especially when we're 18, right? What difference would it make if everyone walked into this world knowing if smoking would cause lung cancer in them or not? Do you think their decisions would be different?
Yeah.
And so the point.
Did somebody like Angelina Jolie just not get the information that there's alternatives? She just looked at it as a death sentence and therefore tore her body apart to avoid it?
What year was that? Do you remember? That might have been before we could have helped.
You know, I think it definitely was before we could have understood the genomics. At that time, they had just discovered the BRCA test. And, you know, so there wasn't a lot of information when she had it, except do you have the gene or not?
Right.
I remember my doctor at that time, because my mother had breast cancer. That was a big discussion in my life as well. Should I take the test or not?
Right. And so, yeah, she took it in that short window where we knew how to read the genes, but we didn't know how to impact them.
Right.
That's not true anymore. So this is more like an instruction manual for your body. You know, when we were kids, didn't they say like you should have come with an instruction manual?
Right.
This is the instruction manual for your body. What is going to work best for your body? What is going to increase or decrease inflammation? Even like COVID susceptibility is in the genes. The progression to severe respiratory failure is very strongly affected with some very specific genes, which if you know you have, you can, number one, be more serious about a vitamin and zinc regimen, and number two, be very much more serious about hand washing and going out in public. You know, again, even the millennials on the beach might make a different decision if they knew for sure they were one of the people susceptible.
Right. So after all this COVID stuff is partially over, or whatever normal is, are you going to be doing another class on this in person, or can you get counseling? I'd like to get the information to somebody who's not listening to the class right now, and I know that I'm not going to present it well. So what's your plans for this information?
Well, you know, my advanced planning skills are not very good, but I probably keep giving classes, but if you have them contact me, I'll send them a recording of this.
Oh, send me a recording of this because it happens to be a family member.
Okay, no problem. No problem.
Perfect. This was much more understandable than the earlier class. I don't know what was different, but it was lovely.
A lot. Yes, I've been working on it since then.
Well, thank you very much.
I was hoping to get 1 or 2 more case studies in, but you know, that was only 4 hours ago.
Well, I'm glad I jumped in and I sort of understand it now. It's still way over my
So
head.
much for coming back and giving me another chance.
All right. If you can send that to me. And I wanted to get more information about like heart disease or the meds they put you on, because that's an area that is important for this person to have testing in.
Sure.
And
Yeah. Heart disease, actually, we can do a lot with the inflammatory pathways. Yeah, there's definitely a lot. I wanted to put more case studies, but since I'm just starting the genomics myself, I didn't want to trick you. Like, I felt like I was tricking you guys into thinking these were my patients, you know, because they're pretty miraculous recoveries, and I want to be able to show you my own instead of making it up.
right.
But the ones that have been presented to me, which were all, you know, people I know and their patients, are truly, truly miraculous improvements. And the woman that created this test, who I've, you know, spoken with many times, her clinic, she, you know, runs with basically genomics, and it's just really, really, you know, great personalized plans.
If I wanted to get a better understanding for myself and I wanted to ask the world of Google, would I just go for genomic medicine?
Ooh.
And I'm really stupid. So it's not like a doctor going out there and looking for additional information.
Well,
I just want to understand it more.
I believe Khan Academy has a thing.
And what is it called again?
Khan Academy. So hold on.
Wow.
Okay.
10.
H.
Come on, let me check.
Don't pay attention to those kids like it's only for children. It's totally for grown-ups. Yeah, probably like this application of DNA technologies. I know, definitely, the reason I know they have a good one, I haven't watched them yet, I plan to, but when I was looking to upgrade this, a lot of the links and good pictures and stuff were coming back to their site.
Okay.
They definitely have some good stuff, and I think they do it as like just courses. Yes, we're somewhere in here. God, the last time I looked at this, there were like 4 courses.
Jeez.
It's been a while. Oh, science. Okay, yeah. So in here, there's going to be a genetic lecture somewhere. I'll email you that link when I email the recording.
Perfect. That'd be great.
All right. Any other questions? Rick, you feeling good?
Yes. I did have a question. You mentioned about the taking the test, and that would help with the CBD and or all the other stuff.
Right.
So that would help me on what I needed to take for my stuff.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, honestly, with what you have going on, I think it would help you a lot. But for you, it would definitely be that expensive package. That's the one that has all the brain stuff in it. It is just, it's logistically, it's harder and more expensive to run the brain labs.
Okay. That's good to know. Okay, but yeah, as long as that would definitely help me with the CBD and whatever stuff is that, that'd be great.
Yes, and I'll still give you that first hour free, like I promised.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah, anytime you or anyone else wants to, just contact Tammy and we'll get the test sent over. It's one of those spit cups. By special order, we can do a swab, but they prefer the spit cup. And anytime, it takes about 6 weeks for the test to come back.
Okay.
Any other questions?
And just so you know, the swabbing, it's very simple. It's just the cheek swab. You do it like several times to get enough saliva in, but done it already once, and it was very simple to do. No gagging involved.
Okay. And then so that I'll get emailed about that stuff, or
No, but we can call you if you want to set something up.
okay, yeah, that'd be
I'll be
great.
calling you anyways, because we still have to talk about your next step, which I'm not going to talk about on this meeting, but I'll be talking to you soon anyways.
Okay, that sounds great.
Okay.
Perfect. Other questions? All right. Thanks for the second chance, guys. I'm glad it went better.
Well, thank you.
No
Thank
problem.
you.
No problem. And you'll get an email when I set the next ones up, okay?
All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Bye.